everybody, and welcome back to our SCORE podcast. SCORE Tennessee has bounded together to bring you interviews with our clients and our mentors so that we can share not only the experiences, but a lot of the mentorship tips and tricks that we share with our clients every day. So hopefully this will help you. Today, I'm excited to welcome Rick Miller. He is a CPA and a longtime SCORE Nashville mentor. Welcome, Rick.
Hey, Anavia. Glad to be here.
We're very happy to have you. Rick and I have been co-mentors in the Nashville SCORE chapter for 4 or 5 years now. I can't remember. It's been like 5 years. But we're very excited to have, let's not talk about time frames. Like with COVID, time and space have no meaning anymore. So yeah, happy to have you on today. And one of the things that we're excited to present as part of this series is kind of the who you know or who you need to know as a small business owner. And we thought you would be great to talk about that, not only because you help business owners every day with their tax planning, their preparedness, and CPA accounting needs, but also because you just know a whole lot of people and have mentored a lot of people in growing their business. So do me a favor, introduce yourself to our audience so they know what's going on.
Absolutely. Well, hey there, everybody. My name is Rick Miller. I am a CPA in public practice with Harvest. Find us online at planyourharvest.com, but proud to be a SCORE volunteer for the last, been about 11 years or so. Joined SCORE, working through another firm, found out what SCORE was all about, and really love the opportunity to be able to give back by providing to our small businesses here in Middle Tennessee and the surrounding communities. So thanks for having me, and glad to be here, Anavia.
Yeah, absolutely. 11 years is a lot longer than my 5 years. Yeah, you definitely you put in a lot of work
when I walked in that room for the first time, I was definitely a young person walking into that room for the first time, as you can well imagine.
So for those of you who are new to SCORE, or you're just getting a mentor or whatever, especially during COVID times, because we haven't been able to meet in person nearly as much as we used to. But I was really surprised when I applied to SCORE to be a mentor, because I was in my early 30s and had only had a business for a few years, and was really surprised that they were going to take me, because traditionally SCORE is retired executives. That's what the R and the E in SCORE. And I was like, are you sure that I could do this? And they were like, we really need people who understand marketing and, social media and all those things. So it's nice to be able to have that in the business mindset while you're also mentoring people, because it keeps the information and the experiences current, which is really important.
It absolutely does, and with so many of our volunteers obviously giving back because they now are retired and they have the bandwidth to give back more, which is wonderful to have subject matters like you and like me who are working out in the field every day provides a unique value to that certified mentor who is mentoring with clients day in and day out. And they can pull us in for our specialized knowledge, and I think it really adds a unique, value added element to what SCORE would be if it was only retired executives.
Yeah. So it's a great combination. And actually, we didn't even plan that. That is a phenomenal segue into our topic today, which is, who do you know? And interestingly, what you just mentioned, Rick, about, there's sort of different people that can help you in specialized areas that when you put them all together, really bring everybody up, right? And so that's what we want to talk about today in your small business, is not you have to do everything yourself, because you do not have to do everything yourself. I'm going to slow down and pause and say it again. You don't have to do everything yourself. And in fact, if you try to keep everything to yourself and you try to become knowledgeable about or an expert in every area of business, you're probably going to get real burnt out and limit the growth of your company and your success. So I think what would be really helpful, for me and the audience, Rick, is let's talk about the areas of your business that you may need help in, where knowing somebody who's an expert in it would really benefit you. So obviously, having a CPA, someone to help you with tax prep and, an accounting kind of firm, that really works. But what other areas, as you've been a coach for so many years, have, just keep popping up?
So here's the first one, and I'm going to go ahead and just say this for what it is. The first role that you could really use some professional assistance in is the idea of having, especially before I go down that road, especially if you're a solopreneur in the sense that you are out there on your own. You are you're the alpha. I don't want to call you the lone wolf, but you know what I mean. It is truly
It feels
your
like
ship,
that.
and you're on your own. I know a lot of times it does. But to first off find some administrative support to help people do the day-to-day. I call it the shifting of sand, but basically all of the tasks that come on your plate every single day, that quite simply these tasks would dominate your entire day if you were to sit in front of your computer or sit in your store and simply just let those things overcome you. I'm talking about things like emails and phone calls and all this
Setting
as quickly as you can. Setting appointments. Try to find systems, processes, or people in order to take that on first and foremost. Because literally, if all you're doing is spending your time scheduling new appointments, for example, now you've lost focus of the actual administration and your overhead. Or guess what? You've lost track of actually serving the clients who you've scheduled appointments for because you're constantly focusing on getting that next appointment. So you've got to build systems and processes in order to bring those clients in. In the law world, we call that intake. You intake the client, take the information, and then guess what? By the time it gets to the practitioner, I see the full case. We understand what's going on, and now we're using the critical skills that we have to actually help clients and really multiply our value. Guess what? Your value is not being multiplied when you're shifting administrative sand from point A to point, when you're just taking it from here and moving it there. That's not achieving your true value as an entrepreneur. So first and foremost is administrative support. When seeking out administrative support, don't always think you got to hire a direct person to do that. There are other third-party systems. There are, virtual receptionists, online scheduling systems, things of this nature that can streamline a lot of these administrative tasks. So you don't have to tackle it all at once. You can even, if you're starting off as a small business, you can start involving and start applying and start utilizing these tools before you just turn it all over to a third party, if you will, or hire a bunch of people to do it for you. Because let's face it, people cost is expensive.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and as a marketing agency owner, I understand that is our number one expense is the labor line. So yeah, the systems I think is really important. And I will say we are going to have another podcast coming out specific to systems and how you can use systems and, strategic people there to scale. But I like what you're saying about, the automation of, apps and, different things that you can connect within technology to allow you to be more efficient. But I agree with you. I think that the administrative part of it is one of the first things that becomes overwhelming for people, right? It's because there's so much of it. Then from there, I think for me anyway, as a business owner, it became categorized. It was there's so much administration. And then it was well, this whole segment of administration is related to taxes and LLCs and business licenses and filings and all of that.
Compliance.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then this whole chunk becomes numbers, and I got to keep track of invoicing and who's paid me and who hasn't, and reminders and late fees and upcharges, and then so categories start to be developed. Where do you see some of those buckets or those categories coming into play, Rick, as people get some momentum with their business?
Right. Yeah. Great question. So at a certain point, though, as you start building and you realize, oh my goodness, I have a real business here. At some point, you're going to realize there's only 24 hours a day. I've got to sleep sometime. And guess what? Most of us don't thrive on 4.5 hours of sleep. Tim Cook and all those alpha type personalities that don't get a lot of sleep, that are just completely working all the time, right? You've got to take that time and to really, one, focus on yourself as the entrepreneur, but two, to also work in your business. I think that's the second point. You've also got to dedicate time not just to work in your business, but to work on your business. One thing in our firm that we do is Fridays. We call Fridays our building days. Fridays is all about self-development and firm development. Everybody in the firm, doesn't matter what level you are, if you're an associate, if you're an administrative assistant, if you're one of the principals, your job on that day is you're either working on yourself or you're working on the firm.
Nice.
Monday to Thursday is for serving clients. So that's how we do it in our firm. But everybody has to take that time to be intentional about when am I going to be building, as opposed to just letting the firm take over, because ultimately we know what happens. That engine gets moving on that engine gets moving way too fast. And unfortunately, we do not have the opportunity to go back and work on improving it because we've since been run over by the machine that we built.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and so, when we're looking at that development, that in versus on the business. So, one of the things that building day can look like, right? Because there's client work. I have to go sell.
Right.
I have to serve clients or customers, whatever you have. I have to update
Absolutely.
my online store, whatever it is. And those things are related to sales. But then there are the parts of business that, again, are going to require some really specialized knowledge. And so, again, we've talked about administrative assistants, something like a CPA, accounting firms. I can speak for myself as a marketing agency and say that's how we help as we come in, and do marketing for companies. And specifically for companies, all of these things really play into companies that want to stay focused on what they're doing. This is what we're really good at. And then bring in a segmented amount of help with those specialized areas. So what that leads us to is you got to know who those people are, right? Because you can go online and search for a CPA or search for a marketing firm, and you're going to get thousands of responses. But really finding a way to connect with people on a quality level to know that when you're going to bring somebody into your small business, like, let's be honest, it's really hard. You can't afford to just cycle through, until you find the right one. Like, you want to make a good pick. So Rick, how do you and or recommend to your clients meet these people? Where do you find people to say, I'm going to need some help around here?
Avia, you're absolutely right when it comes to expanding your own team, right, and expanding your own reach and your own capabilities through hiring other professionals. And ultimately, it comes down to one question, because a lot of people like me, and I'm really guilty about this myself. I'm a huge DIY guy. If I can do it, I have a hard time hiring a lot of those things out, even though I might not have the skill. Or I'm sorry, even though I might have the skill and I may have the will, if I know that I just don't simply have the time, because my time is better served building my business and working with my clients. Building my business, working with my clients. My time is not well spent developing marketing ad copy and doing the things that you do, for example. So at a certain point, it's what do I need to do to focus on building more revenue and getting my business from a objective standpoint, getting it to where I want it to be, right? Yeah. As opposed to simply trying to keep all the plates spinning on my own. You simply cannot do it on your own. And it reminds me back to the book, Gerber's book, The E-Myth Revisited. I encourage any new entrepreneur to read that book, not because and his story is kind of cheesy, it really is, but the points are very, very well taken in terms of the psyche of a small business owner and of an entrepreneur. And quite honestly, if you were to take all this on your own, unless you're just an extremely strong and organized person, you're going to run over yourself. But when it comes to meeting people like attorneys and CPAs, other professionals, the question is, what is the proverbial, meet and greet place that exists in the business world? SCORE provides a lot of those opportunities with a lot of our community meet and greets that are great to do. There's marketing events and networking events and networking groups all over town. I will caution people about those things. Usually those things are sponsored by other people who are looking for leads. So remember, these are all opportunities to generate leads. So let's just be honest. There's nothing wrong with that. And those are great opportunities to, hey, have a lunch, meet people, and talk business. Because then there are also the social clubs, if you will, Kiwanis, I'm trying to think of Rotary Club, Lions Club, things of that nature. Those are great organizations as well, but their purpose is not necessarily building business. They have their own missions inside those own civic organizations. So finding good networking groups, and ultimately, here's the best I can say: find good business friends. And in other words, what I mean by that is other entrepreneurs whom you have professional friendships. I'm going to use that word, professional friendships, that you can actually sit and ask honest, tough questions and know that you're going to get an honest, thoughtful response.
Yeah, that's
so
really great.
build your network of business of true business friendships that you can lean on.
Well, and the thing I like about that is, you use the word networking in there a couple of times. And I think networking is something that people don't, it's not taught somewhere, to my knowledge. I've not, You know what I mean? Like there's not like some like course that I took at college. They're not teaching that in high school. I'm sure that there's like, online courses about it and things like that. But like overall, like it's not really a requirement. There's not this like formality to this is how you network, but it's so imperative for our business growth because of a lot of the things that you just said. It's about who you know. And so I want to think about this in two different ways. One is what you were just saying related to, meeting people that you can work with and what we were talking about, hiring them in and using them for a strategic, specialized approach to something, right? And those people, for me, I have found with what you just said, it's business friendships. So I meet people someplace and it's not that they're going to buy something from me or I'm going to buy something from them, but it's like, you feel like a cool person that I could jive with. Let's go get coffee. We have a good conversation. I can tell that we have similar, similar rhythms or work ethics or whatever it is. And then from there, you just start asking. And I think that's where a lot of people kind of keep that to themselves. Like asking for referrals from people that you know and trust is going to get you much further down the line than just like Google searching. So for example, I own a marketing agency. We know all kinds of people. Because when my client comes to me and says, hey, Anavia, like we're thinking about making a change with our CPA. We're thinking about, we really need help in our legal, department or whatever. I need a lawyer. I don't want to have to be like, oh, I don't know anybody. I only do marketing, man. Sorry.
Right.
Chances are like, I want to be able to refer my lawyer that I love and I've worked with for years. I want to be able to refer, people that I know and that are my friends. So building that network is important, not just for the hiring, but to actually build a network of referral partners and people right? Because those quality relationships are going to help you not only when you need help, but so that you can ask people, for further connections. Because I'm sure as a CPA, you probably have several direct referrals that are adjacent to your industry that you're able to make for clients, right?
Not just adjacent to my industry, but in my industry. Take accountants, for example, as a CPA. That's such a broad sense of knowledge and information. I specialize in a specific area of compliance and tax planning. So because of my area, I require other CPAs, for example, I don't perform audits. It's just not something that I do. But I have an audit partner who does.
They sound so fun, Rick. That's out of the top
yes,
of your list
auditors are
things
great people. Yes. They are. But it's funny, going back to what you said about networking though, specifically, and I think this is important. We talk about how it's important to build those routines and to have these events. That's one of the great things about those networking events, whether you're selling or just meeting people. Because it's an event, it's something that's routine. It's every other Wednesday at noon or once a month on a Tuesday, for to get together after work. Whatever that event is, because it's routine, it forces you to go. It forces you to meet those people. So encourage business owners, if you're not part of that type of organization, find something from a professional networking standpoint that you can go out there and meet others just to stay plugged in. I think you brought up a great point there, Anavia.
Absolutely. And that's market awareness too. Like, it's not just who you know, it's who knows you, right? Like, who can refer back to you and who knows you exist.
Well, especially if you have a well-defined value proposition and people know what that is, then absolutely. Then guess what? Referrals are going to come to you because you're communicating that value proposition to others. So you're absolutely right.
One of the things that I think when we're talking about building a network too is, so you're talking about adjacent to your industry and within your industry. And one of the things that I love about what you just said is that it reminds me of this concept. I call it cooperation. Have you heard that before?
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
So I heard it somewhere and I was like, oh my God, that's so brilliant. Right. And I think I've even mentioned it in one of the other podcasts, but the concept that within, if somebody says, do you do marketing? Well, I do, but what kind of marketing? Because there's like 800 different ways that you can want or need or implement marketing. What is it that you specifically want, right? Because I'm not going to be the right fit for everyone. I had a client or a prospect call earlier today. They had been referred to me by somebody else, which is my network at work, which is awesome. And I start talking to them and they're like, yeah, like we basically need this, this, and this. And that's it. Like we want a month-to-month contract with someone who will just come in and make some social media posts for us. And I was like, great. Let me introduce you to somebody that I know. And they were like, what? Don't you do marketing? And I'm like, well, yeah, I do, but I don't do that kind of marketing. Like we
Right.
do sort of more like comprehensive stuff where we're doing all your things and the grow, right? And so it was a very fast thing. And it not only is a solution for that person, right? But also a very cool part about that is that it saves me so much time. So trying to serve people that aren't my target audience takes so much of my time and energy and bandwidth to try to like, oh yeah, that's not really what we do, but we can make it work. But it's not, it's going to be outside of, and I'm not getting enough money for it. And I'm trying to learn it as I go, rather than just saying, this is what I do and this is what I don't, but I can still help you solve your problem by referring you to someone else. There's a huge amount of time saving there, I think.
I think you're absolutely right, and be able to identify that and articulate it in a way is going to build a lot of credibility for you too in building your own network.
So you were talking about the SCORE events earlier, and I like to offer something very tactical for our audience in every episode too. So you talked about the SCORE events, which is a great place to not only meet other professionals, but also to meet SCORE mentors and just straight ask, right? So like, hey, who is it that you know that could help me fill this need? And I think you mentioned, the Chamber of Commerce and the, Rotary clubs and things of that nature. What about any sort of specialized groups? So for example, I'm a woman-owned business, and I am part of a group here in Nashville called Brain Trust. It is strategically for women-owned businesses that are trying to grow to the $1 million mark, and they put them in little vault groups, and there's a lot of peer-to-peer experience sharing. Are there any others that you're familiar of that are around sort of some specialties, even if they're industry specific? I'd like to to kind of offer some of those up because they might not be. No, I'm judging on your face. It doesn't know.
Yeah, I mean, from that standpoint, as a CPA, I'm thinking kind of like the Tennessee, the TSCPA, the Tennessee Society of CPAs, a group like that, perhaps. But all that's going to be very dependent on your trade group and what resources are out there.
All right. We've got a lot going on in our business. We're scaling, we're growing, we're becoming overwhelmed, and we go, I know all of these people, and all of them do different stuff, and all of them do it in different industries and different levels and all those things. How do we know when it's truly time to bring in that help? Because as you mentioned earlier, labor can be very expensive. And so, we want to make sure we're making good decisions. What are some of those warning signs or sort of trigger points, Rick, that we go, oh, this is it. This is really time.
So as a DIY person, what I always tell clients is you can do something on your own until one, you've identified that you're getting yourself into trouble, or two, until it actually is hurting your business to do it yourself. At those two critical stages is when you don't have a choice. You have to engage others, and you're going to need assistance and help doing what you're doing. Not because you're not capable, not because you're not able, not because you're not willing, simply because there's not enough capacity. We are, most of us are creatures of habit in the sense that we want to take and take and take, especially as entrepreneurs. We want to fill our plate and keep our plate filled at all times, but there has to be process, there has to be logic here. And unfortunately, there are sometimes situations that it's like, oh my goodness, I need to spend, X amount of hours on this administrative or this accounting issue. It does not make sense because I've got 5 paying clients that are calling me right now that need assistance. But here's the next follow-up question I usually get asked. But Rick, I don't charge enough to pay what these other people are asking for. If that's the case, then you have 2 issues. The first one is you're probably not charging enough either. If you cannot effectively charge a level where you are covering your general operating overhead and covering for contingencies that may come up in your business, you're simply not charging enough. That is a difficult, and Anavia, you're a business owner, I'm a business owner. Pricing is one of the most challenging things to come up, that we hear about. But ultimately, when it comes to this element here, you got to think, am I making enough revenue to truly run your business? And guess what? Unplanned contingencies needs to be part of that plan.
Yeah, for sure. So I will, like I was mentioning, like experience sharing and sort of that's all part of the mentorship, right? So I started my business 8 years ago. And when I did, I was on unemployment. I was literally like coming to the end of my savings and like, I need to make money to make my mortgage payment. Like that's where I was. And so I started talking to people and, hey, I can do your marketing. Like people were asking me, like, can you help me with this, blah, blah, blah. And when I started to do it, I was charging like $200 or $300 a month to do a company's and like all their marketing. because I needed to make my mortgage. Like, I was just like, how much is it? What's the least amount that I can charge you that you will definitely 100% hire me? Because like, I will work my butt off just to get the money to be able to not get evicted, right? Well, within 6 months, I had 17 clients. And that is not sustainable, and it's not scalable for one person to be doing all of the marketing for 17 clients. So two things. When I got to that point, we were talking about how do you know when it's time? It is time. Like, if you have 17 clients you're managing by yourself, it is time. And so I both hired someone to help and also raised my prices. I also strategically did not renew the contracts on some clients that were not going to be good fits for me, right? So over that 8 years of being in business, that cycle of growth and scaling up, growth, scale up, growth, like kind of like leveling to the next one with pricing specifically, that's happened a dozen times. And so now,
Absolutely.
I mentor people with SCORE, coach people. And they come in and they're just starting and they're going, oh my God, I wish I could do what you do. And I'm like, cool, you will. You will get there, but you're not going to do it on the first day. And that is 100,000% okay. Like, you start with where you're at. And then when you see, hey, I need to get some help around here and hire a lawyer. I need to get some help around here and hire a marketing company. Then you can reverse engineer your pricing. Well, if I'm not in a position right now to hire that person and I really need that help and I'm making this up, they're going to charge me $500 a month, I got to figure out how to charge or get another $500 a month from my current or future clients. And so that goes and reverse informs your pricing model, right? Like, if you can list out, here are all the things that I'm going to spend money on and have a little bit of that buffer room and then grow over time, like you'll be able to do that level up.
Anavia, I think we just created the next theme for the next podcast, right? When is it okay to pivot and to create that next version or the next entity of what your business is going to be? Because here's ultimately comes down to nobody, Microsoft, Apple, nobody is sitting on version 1.0 at the same version that they created when they founded. There's going to be version changes. There's going to be complete platform changes. It's going to feel different to your clients. And guess what? Those that are loyal to you because you delivered on that value proposition that you set out to do will stay with you and will help you ultimately grow your business and be raving fans. So again, a podcast for another day.
Absolutely. Well, we will add that to the list of podcasts that are coming up. So, but no, and again, completely agree. I think that when we're talking about, growth and scalability of small businesses, I want to always remind people when you're listening to these podcasts that the stories that we're sharing, both from our clients, and from our mentors at SCORE, this is years. It's years of work and it's years of experience. And it's, we've said it in another podcast now, but it's eating the elephant one bite at a time. It's one small baby step at a time, and one of my favorite things is don't compare your chapter 2 to somebody else's chapter 20. Like, the whole point of SCORE and, bringing in, advisors and, consultants and mentors and all these people is that, you help, you learn through other people's experiences. So it shortens your learning curve and your growth, but you still have to go through that for yourself. And, depending on who you know and who you can bring in to help you, hopefully that'll go a little faster.
And the folks at SCORE are always happy to help and happy part of that networking journey with you as you look to find people that can help you in your business.
Absolutely. Rick, thank you so much for being with us today. I appreciate you sharing all of your insights and knowledge.
Hey, Anavia, it's a pleasure as always. Good to see you.
You too. Everybody, we will see you on our next podcast, and we hope you have a lovely day. Thanks for joining us.